Ryan Naylor reportedly signing with the Seahawks. What kind of money are the Mariners spending on him? Any idea?
I don't know exactly. We're kind of our reporting, like people were talking to, they don't want to give the number until that it gets finalized. He's taking the physical, I think, today. At 5 years is what we've been told. I mean, I think you're looking at somewhere between 90 and 100 million. I don't know that it'd be over that. Usually when you go longer, the average annual value goes down a little bit. I know a lot of people kind of figured it'd be about four at 20 million, and maybe it's 5 at 20 million, close to 100, but I don't know that it's more than that. I saw some people were saying like 130 million. No, I don't think that's the case. To go to the fifth year, I think the average annual value and the overall will go down a little bit. I'm sure there's some incentives and stuff thrown in there as well. But, you know, a lot of times for people, the extra year is probably more like it's more of an obstacle in these negotiations than the money itself, because like you're pushing that contract out longer and longer. So I think the Mariners knew they had to go above and beyond what people thought the market value was. And by giving him 5 years, I mean, that definitely speaks to a little bit more than what we thought they were going to give him.
Hey, Ryan, when we got the AL MVP votes, I was frustrated, and I was like, man, why are we letting writers and journalists determine MVPs? And then I thought about you and immediately apologized and said Divish should be the only one
He took you out of it.
Who could vote. Did you have conversations with any of your peers and try to figure out, why some people voted for a Judge instead of Cal Raleigh?
Yeah, I talked to some of the voters, and I mean, I think a lot of them basically just said that the sheer offensive numbers and the offensive force that Aaron Judge provided at the plate, and then just being pretty solid in right field. I mean, he's actually a pretty decent right fielder when he plays. That all of that overtook any value that Cal may have had from the defensive standpoint and from handling the staff. And in a way, I mean, like a lot of voters, like they're not going to see the day-to-day stuff that I saw, the value in terms of working with pitchers, the game-to-game stuff. I mean, there's no all 22. They're not watching film of this. And, they're going off of a lot of the empirical numbers, and a lot of the empirical numbers said that Judge had one of the best offensive seasons in probably 20-some years, the best one of the best post-steroid offensive seasons that's ever been put out there, and that mattered more than what you can't measure, which is Cal's value as a leader, as a defensive player, handling a pitching staff. Like, you can look at framing metrics, and some of the defensive metrics weren't as kind to Cal this year as maybe they were a year ago. But, like, those things, people still those things only paint one picture. Like, I think we know that the value of Cal also is the leadership quotient, handling the staff, putting the staff ahead of him, calling pitches, all those stuff that can't be measured by data and can't truly be appreciated by people that aren't there every day. I think everybody knows the value of a catcher, but I think a lot of people felt like Judge's leadership, he is kind of the voice of that Yankees team, and his offensive presence alone outweighed that. To me, there was no wrong answer. You could vote for Judge, you could vote for Cal, and I didn't have a problem with either of it, because I felt like Judge's numbers were really ridiculous to the point that yeah, he was worthy as well.
I want to go back to your point about, I think a lot of people understand the value of a catcher. I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I learned so much more about the catching position this year just based on the sheer number of features that I was reading about it, with you guys obviously putting out so many amazing ones. But I look at how many people are pointing to those defensive stats, and it's like, how do you even, I know you mentioned this with your answer, but like, I don't even know how you capture what a catcher does. It really kind of falls into that category of F4 is going to capture certain things. It in no way is going to fully encapsulate what a catcher does. And I think because of that, there are even people covering the game that don't quite get it. And someone's catcher might have a different kind of role than one like Cal, or play less.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the thing, is like there are very few catchers like Cal in Major League Baseball that catch as much as he does, that kind of I think all catchers want their pitchers to do well, and they say that's the priority and this and that. But to be honest, like, Cal truly puts the catchers ahead of him. Like, if he has to sacrifice time to go hit in the cages or whatever because he's still working on a game plan with a starter, then he does it. Like during the spring, he's putting in 12-hour days to make sure he gets time with his pitchers, time for recovery, then his offensive stuff. He's logging in all these kinds of long days because that's what's more important to him. Not all catchers are like that. And I think you're right in the sense that not even all writers can truly see what goes on. Not everybody's as open about what they do, like the Mariners are, like lets us into the kind of the background of it. A few years ago, I wrote that story where I followed Cal around for an entire day, and that meant me getting there at 4:30 in the morning at spring training and not leaving till 6 at night, following him around for an entire day. And like, not everybody can write that. Not everybody gets to see it. I guess for me, because as an infielder who ate his way into a catching position in college, I did live it every day. And the beating that I took, and I'm not even catching good pitchers. Like, Cal takes a beating every day, but you have to watch for it. You have to understand it. And I think, I know a lot of people are mad at the writers, but like, this wasn't like a no-brainer decision. This wasn't like voting for Ohtani in the National League. This was a hard one. And I think a lot of the writers I talked to really went back and forth on it. And, you see different numbers, you see different comparisons, and some of them went with Judge. But I know this much, and, not to be all like overreaching, I think the writers that made this decision, the 30 writers that had to vote on this, took a little bit more time than people do in a lot of more important decisions that they vote upon in their lives. So like, there was a lot of thought that went into it. And, a lot of people that voted wrote about it. Tim Booth and I wrote about it. I know all the people at The Athletic who had votes on stuff wrote about it because we knew it was going to be controversial. This has been debated for a long time. And then you're using stats like batting average, which have been debated as their value. You're using WAR, you're using all the stuff. And then, you have the kind of old school thoughts about it. It's like, what does a catcher represent versus what an outfielder represents? To me, a catcher represents everything, probably because I've covered the Mariners for 20 years. I've seen a lot of bad catching in my life. And to see somebody that's as good as Cal on a daily basis and put up the numbers he did, it's truly amazing. And honestly, I don't know that he'll ever do something like this again. I don't know that we'll ever see an opportunity for a catcher to win the Most Valuable Player award. It hasn't happened since Buster Olney in 2012. I don't know when it'll happen again. And if it does, it will be Cal doing it because very few catchers play as much as he does, log as many at-bats and plate appearances, and produce the way he does. And, it'll be hard for him to do that again next year.
I want to shift over to Stacey touched on it already, but just the signing of Naylor, right? And to me, Ryan, it makes me feel like, okay, the management is taking this seriously and they're doing something that I'm not used to doing, which is just doing the obvious and getting talent, right? Or retaining some talent. Does that make you feel like there could be a shift in their approach, or was it just an easy decision?
Yeah, I think there's a shift in the approach simply because of the success of last season. They have some money. In the last few years, they haven't had the dollars, or they weren't, Dipoto and Hollander weren't given the budgetary dollars to go out and kind of make these sorts of moves. And to be honest, too, like it's not easy getting players to resign or to sign here. All of this worked, and texting with some people in the Mariners front office about this when, the news started to break and getting confirmation and everything. Like, one of the executives who talks really, really fast and is a big fan of Ohio State just said it had to get done. This is a guy that wanted to be here. This is a guy they wanted to be here. And when you have that in common, then you can't mess around. You get it done. You find a way to get it done, even if you go out of your comfort level. And I know on this show I've been very critical of the Mariners about being unwilling to get out of their comfort level when it comes to signing guys or spending money on free agents. Well, they've done it. 5 years is more than anybody thought Josh Naylor was going to get. They went out and gave him 5 years, and that's why they're going to get him, because that's what they realize is, look, this guy fits. He wants to be here. They want him here. Make it happen. It would have been a colossal failure this offseason if they couldn't have made this work because of, salary or whatever. Or they let it happen where the Mets came in and jumped in and gave them a whole bunch of money. Figure out how to get it done early. offer a really good deal that makes him say, no, I'm going to take this because this is probably the best offer I'm going to get, and it's a place I want to be at. And I think that's what the Mariners did.
Great hints about the executive. Andy McKay, Tony Arnerich, and Christopher Negron are all leaving. What's going on with some of the coaching turnover we're seeing?
Yeah, it's kind of when you have good seasons, people look at you and say, okay, well they must be doing something right. For Andy McKay, it's different because he's always wanted to be on the field and in the dugout, on the big league level. He was going to get that chance in 22, and then the guy that was replacing him as director of player development decided to leave to help run a family business. So he went back to his old job and then never got that chance again to be on the big league staff. That's what he's always wanted. And Stephen Vogt offered him that opportunity. I think he knew that if he didn't take this now, he might not get another chance for a while. And then with Arnerich and Negron going to bench coach positions, that's a promotion. You're one step away from being a manager usually, and it's a title bump. It comes with more money. Tony was in the bullpen coach. That's not really where he wanted to be. He liked the job, but he's a catcher. He's a former catcher. He's got that catching background. He wants to have more overarching kind of responsibilities. And Negron, I think everybody knows that guy has a kind of charisma. He's bilingual, everything else to be a future manager. You're not going to get that opportunity staying there and coaching first base when you can get a bench coaching job somewhere else. So I think it represents more money, title bump, everything else. They had a lot of people looking at their staff this year. And the scary thing for them was the possibility of losing Trent Blank and Pete Woodworth, their two pitching guys, because both of their contracts were up. So, they were free to kind of look around, but the Mariners made sure to lock them up before anybody could take them because that would have been really bad. Those guys are super responsible for helping find and develop these pitchers, and losing either of them would have been bad, and they were able to keep both of them.
What do you think the next move is? I mean, Stacy and I were saying pretty much is Polanco. And Polanco kind of scares me, man. I believe in him, obviously, because you can't ignore his performance this year, but he's 1 for 2 when it comes to performances. How do you feel about Polanco, and what do you think they should do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should go 3 years or anything. I think they should kind of give him the Mitch Garver deal, 2 years, $24 million. Maybe give it an option for a third if he's got a vesting option, kind of like what he had this year where he performs. But other than that, no, I wouldn't, break the bank on him. And I think, again, that's a guy that wants to. It's similar to Naylor. He's a guy that wants to be in Seattle. He likes the team. He likes the familiarity. He doesn't like change a lot. So I don't think he's out there looking to wring every dollar out of the situation. So maybe that's one that gets done. I think they were hoping they could get it done right away as well. And then the reliever market's pretty busy, or it's pretty open right now. They want a left-handed reliever to help out Gabe Spire, and they probably want another right-handed reliever that can get some swing and miss. I mean, there's a whole market of them out there, so they're going to take a look at those guys as well. I don't know that they'll be the big names, but they need one more leverage guy to go with that group because Bizzardo, Spire, Munoz, they all threw a ton, and Brash is coming back off the injury, so you need to add a few more pieces to the bullpen. So that might be an easier sign because you're looking at maybe a 1 or 2 year deal that you don't have to negotiate as much. So that may happen before Polanco, but I would think Polanco is the next guy that position-wise that they could probably take care of.
Is there a potential big trade that they could still make? And we've been talking a lot about Tarik Skubal, and I can't tell if that's just sports talk fodder, it's that time of the year, we're just going to talk about potential things, or with the number of pretty reputable names talking about it, if it's kind of like a where there's smoke, there's fire situation. Is it a realistic possibility?
I think it's a realistic possibility because they'll always listen on anything, and they'll always stick their nose in it to find out if there's anything there. That would be, I think for them to want to do that, they would have to have finished their roster a little bit more, had some clarity with Polanco or what they're going to do and the relievers. But yeah, I mean, they have more talent than anybody probably in the overall farm system depth. And, the thing is, everybody thinks Skubal's going to cost the world. He will and he won't because it's a 1 year deal. You only get him for a rental. So it's not going to be as much as maybe you would think you'd have to give up. With Juan Soto, you had him for a year and a half, so it was different. But, I mean, it's still going to cost a lot. But they should listen. Why not? Take a look and listen. Maybe it's not as painful as you think it's going to be. And all of a sudden, you add that horse to a rotation. And what it does, honestly, is if you did want to make a move with one of your other pitchers to go out and supplement your team, maybe your position base a little bit, you could do that too. So they'll definitely listen. The starting pitching market's so deep right now, and there's so many guys. Like the idea of trading Luis Castillo, I just don't think is going to happen. And I think they know he's still probably trending downward, but they need him because he seems to make 30 starts every year. They're not all the prettiest ones, but still the volume that he provides is important. But his no trade clause is gone. His no trade clause is gone now, so they could. I mean, like Ketel Marte's out there. Maybe they look at a position player like that. There's a lot of guys. If the Tigers are willing to move Tarik Skubal, then are they willing to move the Kirby killer, Kerry Carpenter? Maybe they are. I mean, like, he would fit in really well with the Mariners in a lot of ways, too. Left-handed bat with some pop that can play all over. I mean, like, there are trades out there, and I think we know that with Jerry and Justin, they can kind of come up with stuff that nobody's ever thought of and use it to their advantage. So I expect there will be trades this offseason. They can't help themselves and not trade, I think.
How are you feeling about third base? You feel like Ben should be given a shot, or you feel like another move should be made?
I think it's interesting. Like with what I don't think they would get. I think they would offer Suarez a 1-year deal. Not for 8 to 10 million, maybe 10 to 12, and then because there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal, you can move on from it. But yeah, I think if they had to, like, say they get Polanco and they're just not finding anything out there on the third base market, and it's not a great third base market, then maybe they would look at, using Ben Williamson there at third. You go out and find another lefty bat to platoon with him for a little bit, and then when Colt Emerson's ready, maybe you move him there. I know he plays shortstop, but Bobby Witt Jr.'s first year at the big league level is at third base. The Mariners are very comfortable with the idea that if Colt Emerson hits and hits well, they could use him at third base in a platoon with Ben Williamson and kind of break him in that way. And then, next year he would probably be your starting shortstop if all goes right. But, yeah, that's the one spot where I think if they had to use internal pieces, they would feel comfortable. Like Polanco isn't really their second baseman, but they need an impact hitter. They don't look at him as a position-wise, like, oh, he's second base or oh, he's DH, he can play either. They just need a hitter to go in that spot. I mean, he basically batted, in the 3, 4, 5 spot all year, and they need somebody behind Cal or Julio to hit. And they, even bringing back Naylor, you still want one more guy, and the value of Polanco is the switch hitter in him. So they need to get another impact bat, and where it plays at, who knows? I mean, like I said, they can use some DHs and stuff like that as well.
Ryan Divish, kind enough to join us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. Check out the latest from Ryan at SeattleTimes.com or the Seattle Times app. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.